Hey guys, as tonight, we're diving into something different. Forget everything you've seen in period dramas about lace corsets, candlelit seduction, and mysterious noblemen with chiseled jawlines. This is the real deal. You're about to live one full, gritty, sweaty, exhausting, eyebrow-raising day in the life of a medieval brothel worker. Before we dive in, hit that like button if you're curious about the untold side of history, and tell me in the comments what part of the world you're listening from. Now, dim the lights, get into bed, get all cozy, and get ready. Because this story, it's not for the faint of heart, but it is for the historically curious. Let's begin. You wake up in a place that smells like damp straw, stale ale, and the faint, bitter tang of last night's sweat. And no, it's not a hostel in Prague. Welcome to your morning. If you were a working girl in a medieval brothel, your bed? It's not so much a bed as a glorified sack of hay stuffed inside a rotting frame. You roll over and something crinkles beneath you. A piece of old bread, someone's sock, you don't want to know. And the mattress? Let's just say it has seen more action than the average battlefield. It's itchy, lumpy, and makes a suspicious crunching sound when you move. Either bed bugs or a dead mouse. Again, you don't want to know. You try to sit up. Your back creaks like a wooden ship hitting a reef. Your knees, betrayers. Your neck, screaming. Your hair, think bird's nest but angrier. Last night was busy. Not glamorous, not lucrative, just busy. 3 clients, one of them forgot to pay. One had garlic breath strong enough to kill a boar, and one kept calling you Marjorie, which isn't your name, or anyone's name probably. You reach for your shift. It's on the floor, still damp. You sniff it. You regret that decision. In this business, fresh clothes means not actively moulding. Lower your standards, or die disappointed. Now let's talk oral hygiene. There's no toothbrush. There's no toothpaste. There is your finger. Maybe a cloth. If you're lucky, someone left a bit of mint behind. Not for you. They were trying to mask your breath. But hey, salvage what you can. You chew it thoughtfully while watching a flea hop off your blanket like it's late for a meeting. Outside your door, you hear movement. The others are waking too. Agnes is probably washing her pits in the kitchen basin. Elsbeth is still passed out with her boots on. You've got 5 minutes to make yourself presentable before the madam walks in and starts yelling like an angry crow in a corset. Quick! Time for your beauty routine, Tim. Step 1. Splash water on your face until your soul comes back. Step 2. Rub your cheeks until they look like you've been kissed by a ghost. Step 3. Tighten that corset like you're sealing a wine barrel. And don't forget the perfume. Today's options include dried lavender tied with a ribbon, yesterday's beer, or, if you're daring, the sweat of a stable boy named Tom. You pull your shift over your head, pull on your skirts, and try to flatten your hair with spit and prayer. Then, the real decision of the day. Which shoes? The ones with the hole in the toe or the ones that bite your ankle like a jealous dog? You pick the hole. Airflow is important. Before you leave the room, you check under your mattress. Not for monsters, for your stash. 1 coin. A love note from a client who might have meant it, and a small carved charm you stole from a nobleman too drunk to notice. You hide it again. It's not much. But in this life, it's everything. You're not just a worker. You're a survivor, and this is your morning. Brutal, blurry, half sober, and somehow still kind of beautiful. But enough sentiment. Time to hit the washroom. If someone hasn't already peed in the basin. Let's go. Theme: bathing, or the lack thereof. Grooming, bodily reality, and medieval beauty standards. Let's talk cleanliness. Or, more accurately, the illusion of it. Because in the medieval brothel business, hygiene is kind of like flirting. 80% performance, 20% sheer hope, and 0% actual soap. So here you are, hunched over a dented tin basin that was probably used to gut fish last week. It's filled with water. Cold. Not refreshing cold. Not spa day cold. No, this is melted snow in a bucket by the door cold. You splash it on your ace. It hits like betrayal. Your paws scream. Your soul leaves your body briefly. But hey, at least it wakes you up. The medieval version of Red Bull? A freezing slap of water and the subtle threat of cholera. You rub down your neck, arms, and... the business bits. With what? A coarse linen rag that smells vaguely of vinegar and regret. You glance at the water. It's already turning murky. 2 more girls are waiting their turn after you. You do not want to be the third bather. That's how you catch things. Things that medieval physicians can't name, but will absolutely try to cure with leeches and a stern prayer. Now we arrive at the glamorous topic of lice. Yes, lice. They are your co-workers now. You don't get rid of them. You learn to live with them, like that one roommate who eats your food but also pays rent so you tolerate it. You pick up your wooden comb, wide teeth, splintered handle, and start dragging it through your hair. Tug, tug, snap. That wasn't the comb. That was your patience. You examine the comb. A tiny critter wiggles. You sigh. Flick it into the fire. Rinse. Repeat. There's a whole dance to it now. You don't even flinch anymore. You're basically immune to shame. Congratulations. Be honest. What's your medieval breaking point? The lice? The bathwater? Or the shared washcloth? Comment below. Let's talk smells. You don't wear perfume. You wear the illusion of not smelling terrible. Your best bet? Dried herbs tied in your bodice. Mint if you're lucky. Rose if someone dropped dead near a garden recently. You crush a sprig. Tuck it between your... well, you know. It's not much. But it might make the difference between a tip and a cough. Now on to the breath. There is no toothpaste, no floss, no fancy influencer-approved tongue scrapers. There's salt, there's a twig, there's wine, if you want to pretend it's a mouthwash. You chew on a clove like it's a mint tic-tac, then cough when it burns your tongue. Refreshing. You take one last look in the dull reflection of your water basin. You look decent. You've scrubbed. You've scented. You've scoured your scalp like you're in a lice-themed cage match. Is it enough? Probably not, but it's good enough to get through the door. Grooming goals in 1342. Skin that doesn't flake in front of the client. Check. Breath that doesn't make people faint. Check. Ish. Hair that isn't moving independently. Almost check. Boil on your thigh. Conceal with skirt fold. Boom. Medieval concealer. Oh, and don't forget your underthings. Yes. You own 2. Maybe. One you wear, one you wash. Sometimes they switch roles spontaneously depending on the weather. You tug your shift down, brush the dust off your hem, and consider adding charcoal to your eyelids. Yes, charcoal, for that mysterious smoky eye look. Also, It helps cover the dark circles you got from going to bed at 2 a.m. and waking up at dawn. You look like a tired saint, which is actually perfect. Men love the contrast. Virgin in the face, chaos in the corset. And just like that, you're ready. You've survived the cold water gauntlet. You've defied lice. You've made it through the morning with your dignity. Mostly intact. Now, time to leave the washroom and enter the real chaos. The house is waking up. The clients are coming. And the madam, she's already yelling. Let's talk about the brothel itself next. Okay, let's paint a picture. You're standing in the main hallway of your medieval brothel, and by main hallway, I mean a narrow corridor that smells like old wood, wax, and ambition. The walls? Leaning in just enough to make you feel like they're conspiring against you. Your brothel isn't the silk-curtained fantasy of movies. No red velvet, no moody jazz. It's more creaky floorboards, soot-smudged ceilings, and curtains made from repurposed sackcloth. Still, it's home, sort of. And it does what it's supposed to. Keeps the clients in, keeps the shame out, and barely keeps the roof from caving in. Now look to your right. There's the parlour, the welcoming space. A fireplace that only half works. A bench that smells like 20 years of unwashed peasants, and a single candle trying its best. Sometimes there's a lute player, if the madame's feeling generous. Sometimes it's just Elsbeth humming dirty limericks while picking her toenails. Either way, it sets the mood. Let's meet the cast, shall we? There's Elsbeth. Big laugh, bigger mouth, swears like a sailor. Probably is a sailor. Then Agnes, sweet, but suspiciously sticky. She once got a tip in buttons, never noticed, still thinks they're coins, and Rosamond, the mysterious one, claimed she was once a noblewoman. More likely she robbed one. You all share a kind of camaraderie, a war sisterhood. You fight over corsets. You cry together in the pantry. You've seen each other sobbing and vomiting and fighting off fleas, and somehow that makes you a family. And then there's the madam. Ah, yes. Her imperial sassiness. She runs the house like a ship captain. One eye always watching, one hand always near the coin purse. Rumour says she once stabbed a bishop with a hairpin. She neither confirms nor denies it. She keeps records in a thick leather book no one's allowed to touch. Her ledger is gospel. It contains every transaction, every debt, every scandal. If it ever caught fire, half the village secrets would go with it. She walks through the house like she owns it, which she does, wearing rings she probably didn't pay for and a gown that smells faintly of incense and don't mess with me. The brothel itself, room by room, the parlour, where clients first enter, low lighting, some dried flowers, chair that collapses if you sit wrong. Clients often pretend to be picky, you pretend to care. The bedrooms, small, candlelit, beds with questionable stains. Some have doors, most have curtains. You get used to performing with an audience of mice. The kitchen always smells like stew and sweat. Half the meals are whatever the butcher won't admit to selling, but it's warm, and there's bread. So, fine. The bathing room. Ha! Just kidding. It's a bucket, behind a curtain, next to the coal room. Cosy. And yet, there's a weird comfort to it. The floors may creak, the windows may rattle, but the brothel hums with life, laughter, secrets, coin clinks, the occasional slap. It's more than a business. It's a world. A messy, sultry, often disappointing world. But it's yours. and at the very least the roof only leaks slightly when it rains. Progress. Would you rather spend a night in a medieval brothel or a modern gym locker room at closing time? Comment below, be honest. So now you know the house, you've met the women, you've heard the floors groan, you've tasted the bread. Hopefully not literally, it's a week old. But next up, let's meet the real heartburn of the job, the clients. Brace yourself. Let's talk about them, the reason you're here, the money bags, the suitors, the stinkers, the clients. Now, if you think being a medieval brothel worker means entertaining mysterious knights and lonely poets, I've got bad news. Most of your clientele smell like cabbage stew and existential dread, and they act like the world owes them free cuddles. Let's run through the regulars. Client Type 1. Sir Sweats a Lot. He's got the body heat of a furnace and the breath of a cheese seller. He undresses slowly and dramatically, like he's unwrapping a sweaty present that no one asked for. His small talk consists of grunts, grins, and, "So, you come here often?" To which you reply, "Literally every night. It's my job, Brian." He thinks he's charming. You think about falling down the stairs just to avoid him. Client Type 2. The farmer who just wants to talk. He pays his coin. He enters the room, and then he sobs into your shift for 45 minutes about his missing cow and how his wife doesn't look at him anymore. You pat his shoulder. You whisper, "There, there." You sneak a snack while he cries. Honestly, easiest coin you'll earn all week. Client Type 3, the noble, who's definitely in disguise. He enters with a hood up, a fake name, and a ridiculous mustache he thinks hides his identity. Spoiler, it doesn't. You treat him like any other customer, because at the end of the day, no amount of silk robes or snotty diction can disguise the fact that he just asked if you'd call him Lord Fluffington. Client Type 4. The weird one. "Oh boy, this guy brings a live duck." He whispers to it. You don't ask questions. He wears mismatched socks, talks about planetary alignments, and wants you to read his palm. With your feet. You smile, you nod, you pretend you're a Virgo, and when he leaves, you burn sage, just in case. But of course, not every client is quirky or sad. Some are scary. There's the kind that think coin buys compliance, that you're a thing, not a person. These are the ones who press too hard, too fast, who ignore no, who act like you're their plaything. And in those moments, it's not about flirtation, it's not about charm, it's survival. You learn the signals, the safe words, the subtle glances to the madam or the worker outside the curtain. You develop a sixth sense for danger, a reflex to stay smiling, even when you're calculating an escape route. But you also learn your own power, the power of control, of choosing what you give and when, the power of reading a man faster than he can drop his pants, the power of turning discomfort into coin and walking away with your head held high. If you had to serve one medieval client type, which would it be? The sad farmer, the duck whisperer? Let me know in the comments. Still, let's not be all doom and gloom. Sometimes you get lucky, sometimes the client's clean, sometimes he's funny, sometimes he falls asleep halfway through and you get paid for a nap. Win-win. And hey, you once had a merchant who gave you a silk ribbon and asked nothing in return. You kept it. Still do. It's tied around your comb now. A reminder that kindness can exist in this strange, sweaty profession. So yes, the clients are a lot. Some are weird, some are rude, some are actually nice. Most are just men. And through it all, you remain standing, brushed, perfumed, poised, like a goddess in patched stockings. Now that you've survived the parade of personalities, it's time to talk about what really matters in this business. The money, or lack thereof. Let's get paid. Our money, the reason you're here. The sweet, elusive, jingling promise that almost makes everything worth it. Almost. Let's break it down. You just spent an hour with a man who called you Maiden of the Moors while he cried about his sheep. He pays you 4 copper coins. You get to keep 1. Yes, 1, uno, singular, a lonely little coin. Why? Because the house gets a cut. The madam takes her share. The bed fee comes out. Laundry, that's charged. Towel use? Yep. Broken bed leg from last Tuesday, still on your tab. And if he used the good candle, that's another half coin right there. Let's look at your weekly earnings. 30 clients, 25 hours of fake laughter, 3 mysterious rashes, 1 semi-functional corset final payout. Enough to buy a loaf of bread, a turnip, and maybe, an old shoe. You stash your coins in a hole under the floorboard. It's not a fortune, it's barely survival, but it's yours, for now. The Ledger of Doom. The Madame keeps a book, a terrifying tome of names, numbers, and vague accusations. You ask to see it once. She laughs so hard she drops her wine. You don't ask again, but you know your name's in there, and next to it, a list of debts, loaned corset, debt, ale after hours, debt, herbal paste for that thing on your back, debt. You dared to get sick, double debt. It's like you're working to pay off the privilege of working. So why do it? Why stay? Because there are few choices for a woman in your position. Marry a pig farmer and birth 12 children. Become a scullery maid and wash dishes until your hands fall off. Beg on the streets and hope the rats share their corner. No thanks. At least here, you earn something. You control what little you can. And some nights, when the candle's just right and the client's already asleep, you can pretend you've won. If you had to live on just what you earned in coins today, what would you buy? Comment below. Extra points if it's not turnips. Still, not all economic exchange is bleak. Sometimes you barter. A client once gave you a bolt of silk. You traded it for boots. You gave the boots to Elsbeth when she got frostbite. She cried and gave you her dinner in return. That's how things work here. Quiet generosity, side deals, whispers and handshakes in the shadows. Some girls trade stories, others trade secrets. One of them even saved up enough to leave. No one knows where she went, but the floorboard where she kept her coins is still loose. You tap it sometimes for luck. You count your own stash every few days. It isn't much, but every coin feels like a battle won, a reminder that you're still here, still fighting, still clever. You dream sometimes of a little cottage or a tavern you run yourself, of a life where no one calls you mom unless you own the place, and who knows, maybe one day. But for now, you tuck the coins away, brush the dust off your skirt, and head back out into the hallway. Because while coin is king, gossip is its sneaky little cousin, and in a brothel, information is currency too. Let's talk about that next. Here's one thing that moves faster than a plague rat in this place. Gossip. And it doesn't just fly, it slithers, climbs, and sometimes explodes. Welcome to the brothel's real currency. Not coin, not favours, information. You're brushing your hair in the common room when Elsbeth leans in and says, "Guess who snuck in the baker's apprentice last night?" You don't guess, you already know. It was Agnes. And it's not the first time. She says it's because he smells like cinnamon. We say it's because he gives free pies. Every woman here is a vault of secrets. But the locks? Let's just say, a few are rusty. You pass notes during dinner. You whisper under blankets. You eavesdrop through cracked walls while pretending to pray. And oh, the things you learn. Secret number 1. The madam's real name. It's not Mistress Valentina, like she claims. It's Mildred. You found a letter once. She still signs it that way. Tell anyone? Never. You enjoy living. Secret number 2. That nobleman with the birthmark. Yeah, he's been visiting his cousin in the country every Tuesday for 6 months. Turns out you're his cousin. You keep the coins. He keeps the fantasy. We call that a win-win. But gossip isn't just fun. It's survival. You trade stories for favours. You deflect danger with secrets. You blackmail with charm. Information is your shield, your weapon, and sometimes your ticket out. What's the most useful secret you've ever kept? Asking for a friend. Comment below. You once overheard the madam arguing with a merchant. Something about owed debts and missing girls. You filed it away, just in case. Elsbeth saw a city guard sneak into the house out of uniform. He's married. She has the upper hand now, and free bread every Sunday. Even Agnes, sweet Agnes, once threatened to tell a regular's wife about his unique preferences if he didn't stop grabbing without asking. He tipped double ever since. You see, the brothel isn't just a workplace, it's a hive. And you're a bee with a sting full of secrets. Next time someone underestimates you, just smile and whisper something terrifying. Now let's talk about danger. The kind that doesn't whisper. The kind that hits like thunder. You knew the risks when you signed up, but knowing them and living them? 2 different beasts. Sometimes clients get angry, sometimes drunk, sometimes worse. And you smile, you flatter, you look for the nearest exit. Let's not sugarcoat it. This job, it's dangerous. No one protects you. Not the law, not the city guard. Sometimes, not even the madam. You've got your own system. A cough means get in here. A knock means get out. A crash means too late. One night, Rosamond screamed. A client had a knife. She walked out with blood on her shoulder and fire in her eyes. The next day she was back. Same corset, same smile. Because what else was she supposed to do? You keep a pin in your bodice, a sliver of iron. Not much, but enough to remind you that you're not helpless. Agnes hides a rock behind the curtain. Elsbeth, she's got fists like bricks. You all watch out for each other. When things go bad, and they do, you become wolves. People think you're weak because you sell softness, but you've survived more danger than half the city guards. You patch each other up. You stitch torn skirts and broken spirits. You cry in silence, and then go out smiling again. You are not a victim. You're a survivor, but you wish you didn't have to be. Still, not every part of this life is pain. Sometimes there's kindness. Let's talk about those rare, quiet gifts. You don't expect it. You've trained yourself not to. This work teaches you to tuck away your softer parts like a dress you don't wear anymore. Because softness gets wrinkled, it gets stained. It doesn't survive the daily scrub of coin and skin and silence. But sometimes, just sometimes, the world surprises you. It's raining tonight, not a thunderous storm. No, this is the kind of rain that whispers on rooftops and smudges candlelight in windows. You're on your 5th night in a row. Tire doesn't quite cut it. Your joints hum like wine glasses after a toast. You were hoping for no client, hoping the madam would forget you were still on the schedule. She didn't. He walks in, cloak soaked, eyes sunken. He doesn't speak much, just asks if he can sit. Sit. You blink. You nod. He doesn't touch you. He doesn't even look at your chest. And that's a rarity bordering on the miraculous. Instead, he pulls a small wrapped parcel from his coat. Inside, 2 slices of apple. Fresh. Still crisp despite the journey. He places one on the nightstand. Takes a bite from the other. Chews. You do the same. And you sit. Together. Chewing. Like 2 people who've shared 1,000 meals, but never a night like this. Smells like my mother's kitchen, he says finally, staring into the middle distance. You don't reply. You don't need to. In that moment you are not cutie or darling or beast. Why won't you smile? You are just there. With someone who doesn't want to forget how being human feels. Others have moments too. There was that older man, balding, breath like garlic and regret. Came in every fortnight just to hold hands, paid full price, never even asked you to undress. He'd talk about his late wife, how she smelled like lavender, how she'd slap him when he snored, how quiet the house was now. You'd nod. Sometimes you'd laugh, and sometimes you'd squeeze his hand until he cried. He always left you a single wildflower from the roadside. Once it was half dead, still meant more than half the gold you'd ever seen. Another man brought a book. Couldn't read himself. Just like the sound of your voice. You read to him, out loud, even the boring parts. He listened like the words were wine, drank them in, stumbled out later, more sober than when he arrived. You still have that book, hidden. It smells like dust and ink and safety. What's the kindest thing a stranger has ever done for you? Comment below, even if it was just sharing an apple. Sometimes it's the little things. A comb left without comment. A pair of socks because the floor looks cold. A joke told badly just to make you laugh. Sometimes it's a man singing. Terribly. Off-key. So confident it makes you grin despite yourself. He called you the only audience that ever mattered. There was a client who lit every candle in the room, just to see how bright it could get. Then he said, "This is what the stars must feel like." He left before touching you. Didn't say why. You never saw him again. But for a few brief moments you felt seen. And not for what you sell. That's the trick of kindness, isn't it? It sneaks past the armour, softens the edges, leaves a bruise you don't mind carrying. You and Elsbeth once danced in the kitchen. No music, just giggles. She spun you like a noblewoman. You nearly fell into the hearth. You both collapsed laughing. Rosamond pretended to be scandalised but joined in anyway. For 5 minutes, you were girls again. Not workers, not survivors, just girls. You remember the warmth in your chest, how it spread like your hearth fire finally reached the part of you that was cold for too long. And that's what you hold on to when the clients are cruel, when your back aches, when the madam's ledger tightens around your throat like a noose. You hold on to that tiny ember, that flicker of good. Because even in this life, especially in this life, A moment of kindness is nothing short of sacred. You don't expect love here, not the romantic kind, not the fairy tale version with the white horse and the rescue from above, but you do find something else. A shared apple, a laugh in the dark, a silence that feels like safety. Sometimes that's enough, and sometimes it's everything. You lie on your back and stare at the ceiling. There's a crack up there that looks like a river, a crooked, useless, drifting river, but still. You imagine floating on it. Let it carry you somewhere that doesn't smell like sweat and old bread. Somewhere the mattress doesn't bite your ribs. Somewhere the floor doesn't groan louder than you do. The night is thick, not loud, just pressed in, like the air itself is tired. You've worked 5 days straight, and not just worked, performed, smiling when you want to scream, laughing when the jokes curdle, cooing like a dove when all you want is silence. Tonight is yours, technically. But your body doesn't know how to relax anymore. You shift, your knee pops, you groan. Rosamond's asleep already. Soft breaths, hair tangled across her face. Elsbeth is out cold, arm hanging off the edge of the bed like a fallen flag. You're jealous of how easy they make it look. Sleep, so simple, so impossible. You try counting coin, imagining each copper clink into your stash beneath the floorboard. The little hoard you've been feeding, coin by coin, hope by hope. Enough to leave? Not yet. Enough to buy your freedom from this place? Not even close. But maybe enough to rent a room in the outskirts, start small, maybe a bakery, maybe a place that smells like honey instead of men. You can see it, faintly, a little home with ivy on the sides, a window box, a dog that doesn't bite, and your name carved in the door frame. Not pet or girl or filth. Your name. But dreams are expensive here, and they break easy. You try not to dwell. It hurts too much to hold them for long, like cradling hot coals. You blink up at that ceiling crack again. Still a river, still not moving. Someone stirs in the hallway. A board creaks. Whispers follow. Another client. Another girl. Another night. It all blurs together eventually. You think it's Wednesday or Friday or Tuesday again. Does it even matter? Time moves weird in here. Nights stretch like old cloth. Days fold in on themselves. You measure time in aches. How long since the last back spasm? How long since you restitched your chemise? How long since you last cried over absolutely nothing? You roll over, face the wall. It smells like dust and old wood. Oddly comforting. You're so tired. Not just body tired, that's normal, but soul tired. Like your spirit's taken up smoking and is halfway through its third pack. You let your thoughts float. Sometimes you pretend you're someone else. A washerwoman with a loud laugh. Or a travelling bard with no ties, no debts, no sore knees. Sometimes you imagine being a nun, all that silence, all that peace. But then you remember the cold, and the kneeling, and the scolding, and no thanks. You've already got plenty of that here. You think of your mother, what little you remember, the smell of rosemary, the way she hummed while kneading dough, the sound of her slippers across stone. You think of the first time you realize she was gone, the kind of gone that doesn't come back. You didn't cry then, you cry now, quietly, into the mattress, so the others don't wake, so you don't wake something worse inside yourself. But even now, even here, there's something stubborn inside you, a little spark. You name it, maybe. Maybe I'll leave. Maybe I'll be loved. Maybe I'll sleep through the whole night someday without jerking awake because someone touched me in a dream. You hold on to maybe like a secret, like a lullaby. Eventually your breath slows. The ceiling fades. The ache in your side dulls into background noise. Your hand finds the edge of the blanket. Rough wool. Still smells like rosemary soap. Rosamond must have done the laundry again. Bless her. The brothel hums like a tired beast around you, snoring, creaking, whispering, dreaming. And you? You let go, just a little, just enough to slip under, into a place where no one calls you, where your name is yours again. Night falls again, and you're still here, still whole, still dreaming, and maybe that's enough. When they write about history, they talk about kings, wars, battles, crown exchanges, the men who shaped nations with ink, swords, or boredom. They never talk about you. No scribe mentions the brothel girl who picked a splinter from her foot while comforting a man twice her age. No priest blesses the woman who shared her stew with a lice-bitten orphan. No historian memorializes the nights you gave comfort when you barely had any left for yourself. But you were here. You mattered. They say history is written by the victors. But between the lines, in the spaces no one bothers to record, you are there, living, breathing, surviving. And isn't that its own kind of victory? You weren't a princess. You didn't have a tower. You didn't need one. You had splinters in your palms from hauling water, scars where corsets pinched, a laugh that got you through 6 kinds of misery, and a heart still beating, still yours, even when they tried to price it. What they don't tell you about women like you is this. You learned to read moods like others read letters. You studied faces instead of maps. You knew how to spot danger and kindness with a glance. And more than once you chose compassion in a world that gave you none. Sometimes your name was darling, or pet, or trash, or worse. But under it all, beneath the sweat, the coin, the smirks, you were someone. Still are. You've seen men cry, beg, break, tell you their deepest fears for the price of a drink and a quiet room. You've seen them at their rawest, and you still offered them warmth. You were the mirror, the balm, the witness. Not because you had to, but because someone had to. People pretend women like you didn't exist, as if history was all monks and queens. They forget the girls who cleaned the blood from the floor, who heard the confessions without the collar, who buried their dreams under cheap perfume and prayers whispered into bedposts. But I remember, and now, so do they. If you made it this far, thank you. Drop a candle emoji in the comments if you believe every story deserves to be remembered, even the ones history tried to erase. One day, someone will light a candle and not know your name. But maybe they'll feel something, a flicker, a pull, a whisper that says, she was here, and she lived like hell. You remember the day you bought a pair of shoes that didn't hurt? That day was a celebration. You walked an extra mile, just because you could. You remember the first time someone said thank you and actually meant it. You remember nights under the stars talking with Elsbeth about what you'd do if you had 5 gold coins. You both wanted chickens. How quaint, how impossible, how lovely. You've dreamed of more, Not castles, not luxury, just enough. Enough room, enough peace, enough laughter that doesn't cost you something later. The madam passed on once. A cough that turned into a fever that turned into no more yelling. You thought things might get better. They didn't, not right away. But change takes time, like bread rising in the dark. Some of the girls left, some stayed. You watched. You learned. And one day you didn't ask for permission. You simply left. No drama. No final kiss. Just a bag of clothes, a loaf of bread, and every coin you hid over the years. Enough to rent a room with a window, a view, a place that didn't creak every time a man arrived. You opened your own shop. Nothing fancy, just candles and bread. Simple things, safe things. You never went by your real name again. But you picked one that made you smile, and that was enough. Years later, a girl would walk in, hungry, tired, eyes like yours used to be. You gave her bread, you didn't ask questions, you lit a candle, and the two of you talked until the sun came up. Maybe she stayed, maybe she didn't. But for one night she knew kindness. You remembered the apple, and how everything changed, not with rescue, but with a shared piece of fruit. So here you are, still standing, still dreaming, still burning, quiet and bright. Not a footnote, not a cautionary tale, but a woman, full, whole, and real. You weren't meant to survive, but you did, and you lived. You lived. Sleep well, and remember, history doesn't forget what you choose to remember.